Assalamu alaikum. Peace and greetings to all of our viewers and participants today. I'm Nicole Mutanani, Western New York Muslims Managing Editor.
And I'm Fatma Lodi, Executive Director of Western New York Muslims.
Today marks Western New York Muslims' first broadcast of WNYM Muslims TV program, The Olive Branch. Today, community members from Western New York community are discussing last month's controversial hearing by Representative Peter King, the extent of radicalization in the American Muslim community and that community's response.
I'm going to start by introducing the panel to my right. We have Dr. Stan Bratton, Executive Director of Network of Religious Communities, Islamic Society of Niagara Frontier, Dr. Enid Bloch, Professor at UB and Editor of Jewish Muslim Friendship Magazine in Western New York. We have Father Frank Mazur. He is a member of Network of Religious Communities. We have Abed Ridha, high school student and local Muslim activist. And we have Brother Bayram Arman at the end, and he is representing the Muslim Public Affairs Council.
On my side, we have Imam Fajri Ansari. He's the Imam of Masjid Numan. We have Dr. Robert Stahl, co-founder of Building Bridges in Western New York. We have Amber Shaikh, who's a local community member and activist, and Farieda Yafai, who's also a local community member and activist. We have Imam Ismail Ayas, the Imam of Masjid al-Iman, and Thawab Shibly, member of UB's Muslim Student Association.
Our moderator today is going to be Professor Faizan Haq. He is a Islamic Studies professor at University at Buffalo and teaches intercultural communication at Buffalo State College.
Greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum. We all have heard about this Peter King's hearing on radicalization of Muslim community in United States of America. We thought that, and I want to thank Fatma and also Nicole for putting this event together and discussing this. I think there's more discussions are needed for this. However, this is our first step, and let's see where we go with this journey of discussing that what are the reactions of this hearing in different aspects of community at large. We have people from Muslim and non-Muslim community here, and we will speak to them. At the same time, we want to find out what led to that kind of step on the behalf of Congressman Peter King that he thought that we should have such hearing, and why the community did not come out first and took the lead in preventing and if there was a need to prevent such a hearing. We'll hear from all of them. So first of all, I will start from my dear friend Butch, as everybody calls him. That what do you think of what is your reaction to this hearing, and where do you think where have we gone with this?
Really bigoted congressional hearings. It was unheard of to have hearings against any kind of religious group in this country. And Representative King himself, historically back in the 1980s, supported the Irish Republican Army. He even said that bombing of British citizens was okay in the name of the Irish Republican Army. I wondered what the hearings produced. What was positive about them? I couldn't see anything positive about those hearings. In my own mind, instead of embracing Muslims in the community, he pushed them farther away. He didn't really call any experts, people that we all know in this country who are experts in Islam, the teaching of Islam, what Islam supports, what it doesn't support. And I really missed that part of the hearing. There were no experts there at all. And if Representative King wanted to have any kind of hearings, he should have had it on other terrorist groups, white supremacist groups. Why not them? Why not anti-government groups? And none of that has ever come up before Congress before. And he used untrue statistics blatantly. He said 80%, Representative King said 80% of the American mosques in this country are the breeding ground for Muslim terrorists. That is an irresponsible statement to make in our community.
We have President of Islamic Society of Niagara Frontier, Husam Ghanim, and we also have Imam Ayash from Connecticut Mosque or Masjid al-Iman. So I will ask the President of Islamic Society of Niagara Frontier, that who manages two mosques, that one at Haim Road and one at Parker Street, that what kind of radicalization is taking place in your mosques, and why haven't we heard about it till Congressman Peter King's brought to our attention?
Actually, I was very disappointed about the hearings that Representative Peter King started. Not only that the data that he presented are not substantiated or have no evidence or scientific backgrounding on their research and how much, I'm not sure how they got that number. But actually, I'm disappointed because we are making every effort in our masajids, in our centers, in our mosques to educate our Muslim community on how to integrate and work with other communities through interfaith dialogues, through opening our centers and our mosques to our friends and colleagues. And I think we have numerous open houses and numerous interfaith lectures and discussions, and we collaborated with almost all the guests attending here, and they have came to our mosques and visited and asked questions, and we replied. And if anybody had any issue, that could have raised at that time, and we could have answered that. But to my knowledge, we had really no issue in our community where we excite or entice or intimidate or preach or deliberately attack any individual or organization or faith. We respect all, we welcome all. We would like to share this freedom that we all cherish here with everybody, and we are happy to be here because actually from places where we came from, we didn't have that. So it's a blessing, but we don't want that freedom of speech to be a hate speech, which it seems that Representative Peter King was hoping to emerge out of these hearings. I think the goal was not to really prove or disprove anything. It's just to increase the level of hate speech, which eventually might lead to some hate crimes. If not today, it will happen later on, and this is something we should stop and avoid. Thank you.
Specifically targeted in this was the American Muslim youth, that they are getting radicalized, or some kind of there's some sort of initiative for them to do that. And we have two representatives here from the Muslim youth group. We have Muhammad Abed from who's a high school student, and we have Thawab, who represents Muslim Student Association at University at Buffalo. So let me ask you, Thawab, what kind of radicalization you guys are involved in, and what kind of activities are happening with MSA that may be categorized under such a term?
If anything is radical for students in MSA, it's in the way we try to serve the community. We're always going out, reaching out to the local Buffalo community through our community service events, and almost every week we have something. I know the problem I had with these hearings is that it really offered no solution, and especially for youth. I think with youth across all religious faiths and cultures and backgrounds, they are all struggling with the feeling of trying to belong. And I think growing up in Buffalo, I always felt like I belonged. I always had a good time. I had plenty of friends and plenty of things to do. But later on, as I entered college and Islamophobia increased, and I started hearing hate speech directed at me and other Muslim students on campus, we began to feel alienated. But then at the same time, we still had our MSA that was running. We could turn to our masjids and other community programs and especially interfaith work that MSA gets involved in. I think that helps in making youth feel involved. And so, I mean, I don't think so long as youth, feel involved and they are civically involved in the community, then there is no chance of radicalization. It's when youth of any culture, any religion, as soon as he or she feels alienated, then you risk them feeling, you risk radicalization. And I think I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed across all boards, across all cultures, is youth feeling alienated with all these like older people discussing things, and they neglect the youth, and they don't offer any solutions for us. So.
Now, since we have heard about youth, one of the youth who was who were actually accused of radicalization some time ago were the African American youth. We know the African Americans have gone through a struggle of acquiring their civil rights in this country, and the Islamic experience of African Americans are very unique, and we can all learn a lot from them regarding the experience of Nation of Islam, and later on the Waradin Muhammad's movement that has actually brought Islam into mainstream of African Americans. And we have a great leader among us from our community, Imam Fajri Ansari of Masjid al-Numan. And let me ask you, Imam Fajri, how do you think that that your experience as a leader, as a community activist, and as a professional can be helpful for us as a community to learn from, and also that how the African American experience can lead us to deal with these situations that keep coming in Muslims' way in America?
Well, thanks for the compliment. I don't know about great leader, but I'll try to do my best. I think it's important that we don't repeat the same mistakes that's been made throughout history, and allowing ethnic groups or individual or religion in this case to be oppressed and discriminated against and alienated. First of all, labels and titles have been used in an inappropriate way. As you mentioned, African Americans and our history here in this country of oppression, and if you think about the KKK and white supremacist groups that was attacking our people in the past, they were never referred to as Christian extremists. So I think it's important for us to correct a lot of these misnomers and labels. Muslim means one who surrenders his or her will to the will of God. And if that's the title, then all people who surrender their will to do the will of God should have been invited to those hearings. We shouldn't have been alienated by ourselves. Islam means it's a journey to peace, surrender, and that's the appropriate title. I'm not even comfortable personally with the term Islamophobia, because phobia is a fear. It's an irrational fear. It's an illogical fear, and to have that connected to a title that's sacred, I'm not comfortable with that. So I think we have to be careful that we don't allow ethnic groups or the image of Islam, and even the picture of Arabs. They want to put the picture of Arab as that's the only picture of Islam. And if we looked at an ethnic group, the Asians would be the largest population of Muslims in the world. So we must continue to educate. Fear is no more than the absence of knowledge. If you study the history of this country, our country that we belong in, there was not only African Americans, Irish, other ethnic groups, many of them suffered discrimination because of ignorance. It's important for the community to know that we abide by laws. Our scripture bounds us to laws, and killing innocent people is against our faith. Discrimination is against our faith. We want for our brothers and sisters what we want for ourselves. We're all a part of the human family. So that is the law proper. So when people are misguided and perform crimes or acts that's against civil rights and civil laws, that doesn't represent Islam no more than the KKK represent Christianity.
Okay. Thank you, Imam Fajri. And now, since we spoke about labels, and there are a lot of labels flying around, and I know one person who is in the center of all this exchange of emails and labels, and that is my dear friend Stan, who has many experiences of resolving conflicts, or at least being the voice of reason. So Stan, what do you think these labels they do to us, and how can we counter it? Is there a way, or we have that every time a new set of people come to this land of ours, they have to go through this initiation process in which we put them through this humiliation?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to the fact of fear. Mm-hmm. I was struck at the hearing. One of the persons that didn't get a lot of publicity was the
representative from New Jersey who said extreme in many times is really in the eye of the beholder. And if you look at when this kind of a fear develops, there's often been economic crisis going on in the country. There have been other kinds of fears. You look back at the McCarthy hearings when they were on. The media, if you go back and start to look at that, there were all these stories in movies and so forth about alien invaders. And I noticed some of them are making their way back. Media, again, look at the prevalence now of the video games, extreme violence. But we're looking at people are experiencing hard economic times, and these are the times that people begin to label others. They begin to fear their neighbors. They begin to strike out, not knowing what to do with their own fear, and certainly a lot of what goes on in the country now doesn't have a lot of sympathy for people who are undergoing hard economic times. So, the word is sometimes scapegoat, but I think that often happens with labels. The other thing that I think occurs as well, and I talk about this in interfaith relationships, we tend to know about our own religious tradition, and we're aware of, you can say, the warts and the quarrels and the differences that exist there. But then we look at another tradition and we say, everybody's the same. So that obviously if there's one person that acts out from that tradition, that must be the way everybody is. But then you talk about, for example, they come into the Christian tradition. Timothy McVeigh kills several hundred people in bombing a public building. But the people, at least in Christianity, are aware of the wide variety. So so they can say, well, that's a certain sect or that's a certain group. It's not everybody. But if you're outside, you're not aware of those diversities. And it becomes very important that we do as much as we can, each of us, of trying to increase the transparency, trying to increase the knowledge, and particularly that experience of the diversity within the tradition. Fajri Ansari pointed out, again, the majority of Muslims are Asians. That's not the stereotype in America. But I think the more you can begin to say, there's Pakistani, Afghan, Middle Eastern, Asian, Muslims are a very varied community. And when it becomes that varied, it's much harder to stereotype. Right. So the two things I say is really trying to understand the diversity of the community that's different than your own, but also at the same time trying to show compassion and support for those who are experiencing hard economic times.
Okay. A mother who has young children and who is involved in community, and these labels, how the children dealing with these labels and what kind of struggle are they going through, and these kind of hearings, how does it help their adjustment in the society, especially the kids who are born here, raised here, and they don't know any other life but America.
My kids are born here in the States. Luckily, they're very involved with the community and with their fellow students of different faiths. And luckily, they have never faced discrimination until recently, what they're hearing in the news about Peter King's hearings. And, I've gone over it with them, and they've talked about it with the social studies teachers. And they're pretty well, informed, and they're very sad about what's going on. They feel like, what is going on here? I mean, all these several years after 9/11, this is happening now. Suddenly, an increase of Islamophobia, and you gotta, wonder about the timing as well. Why now? Is it because due to election coming up next year? But anyway, so back to my kids. They're getting worried. They're feeling like maybe they're not they don't feel like they're part of this diverse country anymore, you know? By calling it Islamic radicalization instead of just a radicalization hearing, it's just basically putting Islam on trial, you know? And we have radicals of all faiths, you know, we have extremists on faiths, and this spreading of fear and hatred is basically dividing our country. I mean, kids are asking my kids, what's going on? Is that what Muslims believe in? You know, and they have to be well informed, and thank God that they are, and that they can answer them, you know, with the information they've received, and with the Quran that they've been reading, and the translation, and how verses in the Quran has been taken out of context, you know, and you know how horrible this is for these poor kids, and how it's going to affect them, and how, you know, there's going to be discrimination against them. In this country since 9/11, we had 800, according to the Department of Justice, there's been 800 cases of discrimination against Muslims ever since 9/11, ever since these propagandists have been spreading about, you know, misinformation and spreading fear and hatred to about us, you know, and it's really sad what's happening. And luckily, you know, these kids have friends who are totally on their side, and they haven't faced any discrimination, but they're well informed, and you know, that's all I have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask the representative of young generation, Muhammad. You went to high school here, and you are also involved with the Muslim youth group. How are you dealing with it? How's your group dealing with it? What do you think is the best way for the youth to handle such situations?
Personally, like me and my friends and everything, we haven't gone through, or we haven't been discriminated against that much. But the best thing really is like to integrate with the people around you at school, because what we see is most of the youth that we see around the school and everything, they don't have that problem. They don't really discriminate that much. Many like adults believe that the kids might be discriminating against each other. There are a certain few, but in the end, most of the kids and the other children, the other teenagers, even like young adults, we see eye to eye. We see the same level. We play together, we eat together, we work together, we do everything together. So I think, in all honesty, it's more of a upside down pyramid kind of effect, that it comes from the adults going to the youth. And as we know, people learn from their parents, and people learn from where they come from and inside the house. And if the adults are acting in a way that can influence their children negatively, the children will grow up and be that way. And with the youth, since we're all together, we relate, we talk to each other, we have the same understandings. I really haven't had that many discriminatory events or anything in my life. But once in a while, there are people that come up to you and say ignorant things. And it's not that they know what they're talking about. It's a lack of education that makes them say these things. Also, yeah, that's technically it. I mean, we get together. We don't have that many problems.
It's a kind of a situation with identity, and regarding identity, one of the identity that there has struggled in the United States of America is the Jewish identity. And I will be asking Dr. Robert Stahl about this, that the Jewish community has gone through struggle of adjustment in this community and the society. They have seen very tough time throughout the history. How do you think that we as a community can learn from Jewish experience of America?
Thank you for inviting me to participate in this important town meeting. The Jewish experience, I represent a group of Jewish physicians in town called the Maimonides Medical Society of Western New York, and that was actually formed in the early 1900s when Jewish physicians could not get admitting privileges to local hospitals. That would be unheard of now. Just as you hear over the intercoms all the Muslim names, you hear all the Jewish names that come over the intercoms at local hospitals. There's also a local Italian medical society that was formed for the same reason. Right now, we're struggling to really find a core reason to exist, because we don't have the problems that we had 50, 75 years ago. So, you know, the Jewish population, both locally and throughout the nation, certainly is aware of what has happened, both in this country and certainly through the experience of World War II, about persecution and prejudice and scapegoating. I want to make a few comments also, my impressions on the hearings, and three individuals I want to point out specifically. I was very impressed by Sheriff Baca, the sheriff of Los Angeles, whose main thesis, and he's been very successful there, and repeatedly he said he doesn't see the radicalization problem. He's reached out to the community. He's hired people in his force of all different ethnicities and speaking all different languages to reach out to the people and to generate a true bond. So they're working together to root out and find radicalism wherever it might exist. Representative Higgins, our local congressman, also spoke at the hearings, and he added that our country is not just formed on Judeo-Christian principles, but it's also based on Islamic principles of justice, peace, and tolerance. And I think he certainly is someone that gets it locally and is certainly an asset to this community. I know firsthand in the work I've been doing, I've immersed myself for the past 2 years in working on a project we call Building Bridges in Western New York. 2 basic principles: respecting each other's personal beliefs and working together for the common good. And this is a group of local Jews and Muslims specifically working together side by side to make our community a better place. In the course of doing that, I attended the Islamic Society of North America annual convention in Washington, D.C. over July 4th weekend. A handful of Jewish people, me included, among 20, 30,000 Muslims, I felt perfectly comfortable. No evidence of radicalism or any threat to my being. It was a wonderful experience. I was in Syria, invited to speak at a dental conference in Syria, and Syrian dentists invited me, a Jewish American, into their homes to see their loved ones that I might be able to help them as a geriatrician. As a physician, I was particularly disheartened by some of the things, well, much of what Dr. Jasser had to say. One, just his presence and the lack of presence of other representative Muslim organizations. Clearly, ISNA is the largest Muslim organization in North America.
What I want to share with everybody is one of my favorite poets is Walt Whitman. And he said one song, America Before I Go, in which he says that, I sow a seed for thee of endless nationality. The United States of America is such a land that offers endless nationality to all the people of the world. The paths to the house I seek to make, but leave to those to come the house itself. We are not going to be here forever. Our job is to prepare this house or leave it better than what we found it in. And with that, I thank Fatma and Nicole and Western New York Muslims for having me as a moderator. Thank you for your time. I know that you took time from your precious schedule, and hopefully we will get together again and we'll continue to have this program.
This concludes our program for today. We would again like to thank our guests for participating in this program. Please stay tuned for more televisions brought to you by Olive Branch.
Please also view other videos that we have on our YouTube channel for WesternNewYorkMuslims.org. Thank you.
Thank you.